Welcome to the Accomplish More podcast, created specifically for the small business owner who doesn't think small. I'm your host, Gayla Scrivener. This show is where you'll learn practical ideas, hints, tips, and tricks to help you grow your small business where you can leverage your time and to accomplish more. Hello there, and thanks for joining me today for the Accomplish More podcast. I'm Gayla Scrivener, and oh boy, it has been a full past couple of weeks. My husband said that I made some waves. Now, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but maybe I did make some ripples. I set in motion some of the action steps to make changes to achieve some of my business goals. Some of the changes that I needed to implement were not too easy, but I feel they are necessary. You know the saying that you can't expect different results if you continue to do the same thing? You know, there's certainly some truth to that, but you can't realize results unless you have some consistency and processes in place. Let me explain what recent ripples I've made and how I felt I needed to do them to be one step closer to my really big goal. I've been a member of a networking group that meets weekly for 5 years. Hey, does that sound right? Yeah, I've been a member for 5 years and we meet weekly. When I first opened Scrivener Solutions and moved from Florida back to Missouri to be closer to family, I knew no one. Let me take that back. I knew my family and some people that I had worked with in the medical industry, but I wasn't in the medical industry anymore, and I needed to meet the folks that were my ideal market. I needed to talk with small business owners. And that's when I learned about the networking group that I eventually joined. I truly believe that building a business starts with relationships. It takes work and effort to get to know people and nurture those relationships. There's so much I could say about networking. Well, and that's just a whole other podcast episode that I can do. So I'll get back to the story at hand. I soon held a leadership position in the group, and I made sure that I was dedicated and consistent with my attendance. You see, that's important because to realize results in that networking group, I needed to be consistent. A weekly commitment does seem like a lot, but I truly believe it's important to become involved and make those genuine connections. Also, soon after I joined, the founders of the networking group had asked me to do their weekly PR, email, and bi-monthly newsletter. I was delighted with the opportunity. It gave me a means of showing the whole networking group, a whole group of small business owners and leaders, what my capabilities are. I was able to create processes for the jobs and created efficiencies within my company. About a year after I joined the networking group, my husband and I moved into the country, which ended up being about 65 to 70 miles away from the city where I began my networking. We live in a small town, and our networking was in the closest large town. I decided to stay with the group and just make it work. I became more intentional with my schedule, and because Thursdays was the day of my networking meeting, Thursdays became my meeting day. I'd leave extremely early in the morning, travel to town, and come home pretty late in the evening time. I've been doing that long travel Thursdays for 4 years now. I've made it work and have been pleased. I have a routine and could plan around it. But when I sat down last year and wrote out my goals, I studied carefully what it would take to achieve that one big goal that I truly want. You know, that one goal, I set out for myself even the year prior, and it's carrying over to this year. I didn't achieve that goal when I originally wanted to. I came to the harsh reality it was because I didn't make the changes I needed in order to move forward. I had to make a change in order to see different results. I had to get out of my comfort zone, and as Robert tells me, I had to make waves. So I carefully reviewed my schedule, and I realized that even though I'm pretty organized in my schedule, I was wasting a ton of time. I realized that it wasn't just one day a week that I was traveling to town, but it became 2 or 3. You see, my husband Robert plays music with his dad at a venue twice a month on Monday evenings, and I join him many times. I found myself booking meetings on Mondays because, after all, I could ride to town with Robert. There are other events that I tend to attend that happen to fall on Monday evenings. I began seeing a pattern. I realized that if I made a slight adjustment of my schedule, the time I had been using making multiple trips to town could be better spent focusing on new things. I realized that if I made a slight adjustment in my schedule, the time I had been using to making multiple trips to town could be better spent focusing on the new things I must do in order to realize my goal. I didn't want to quit the networking group that I was involved with altogether because I feel the membership is still important for my business's growth. But being a part of a large networking group provides opportunities. There are several chapters of the organization all meeting at different times and places, so I could just make a shift. I first thought I could move to a chapter that was half the distance from home. That would be well and good. But since this networking group that I'm involved with has industry-exclusive chapters, I had to mark that one off my list because there was already a member in that chapter that does pretty much the same thing that I do. So my sights was turned to a Monday chapter. Even though I still have to travel all the way to that same bigger town that I've been doing all along, Robert already has a commitment to keep at least 2 Mondays a month in that same big town. It just makes sense to move my massive meeting days to Mondays and leave Tuesday through Friday for client work and work on my new projects. That was my first realization. I must change my networking meeting days. I didn't take immediate action because I also held a leadership role and I needed to plan for the transition. What also came out of this was my second realization was that I carefully evaluated the PR email and the bi-monthly newsletter projects that I have been doing for the organization. I'm proud of them. I like the connections I've made because of the publications. I like the end product. I like how efficient my team and I had become in the process of producing the products. But when I crunched those numbers, the return on investment just didn't make sense to continue. It was time to renegotiate the contract or let it go completely. When you renegotiate contracts, you should be in a place where you are okay with letting it go, because there is a very real chance that the person you're negotiating with will say no, and that should be completely okay. So, right before the holidays, I went to the founders of the networking group and gave notice that I would be resigning my leadership position in my group, moving to a different chapter, and we needed to renegotiate our publication agreement. Wow, what a lot to spring on the founders all at once. The conversation was good, and we worked through everything together of what to do next. Since it was the hecticness of the holidays, we decided that it was good for them to think about renegotiating the publication agreement, and I said I didn't want to make the announcement to my chapter until the first of the year anyway, and help with the transition of leadership. I expressed as of February 1st, I needed to be in my new group and our agreement needed to be decided. Needless to say, the last couple of weeks have been full because action has been taken. I've announced to my Thursday chapter that I was resigning my leadership position and moving to another chapter. Now, this isn't an easy decision that I came to lightly or suddenly. I like the people in the group, and I feel a sense of loyalty and commitment to them. Honestly, I'm sad to say farewell. It's not goodbye, it's just farewell. I hated to stand up and make that announcement. I had this big lump in my throat throughout the whole meeting until I made that announcement. I like the group, and I joked that it would be much easier if everyone would just heed to my schedule. But I know that's not possible, and I must make the change to allow for other opportunities. and everyone was very supportive and wonderful. And once I made that announcement, it was like a weight lifted off of me. At about the same time, after an additional discussion with the founders about negotiating that publication agreement, it was mutual that it was the right time to pass the torch, so to speak, and have someone else do the projects. Yes, on one hand, I'm a little sad, but on the other hand, letting the projects go is opening me up for greater opportunities. I have made some ripples in my world and have been terribly busy the past couple of weeks trying to tie up loose ends. It would have been a whole lot easier to avoid the whole conversations and kept doing what I've always been doing. Saying farewell is hard. Sometimes you wonder if you're making the right decision. I feel like I was disappointing people, and that eats at me a little bit. If I kept doing what I was doing, I would never realize different results. And I'm already feeling the lift of responsibility of that so that I am starting my new chapter. Here are the great things that come out of shaking things up and making changes. First, it allows you to think differently. By taking that first step and making changes made me think carefully what I will replace my time with. You see, I was willing to walk away from the revenue that I received for doing the networking group's publications. If they would have accepted my offer, then I would have continued on. Knowing that chances are they would find another vendor, I was perfectly okay with that. As I was transitioning what I did for the publication, I saw opportunities for process improvements in other areas of my clients' projects. Even though my new schedule doesn't officially start until next week, I'm already seeing results. I'm booking out appointments differently, and I don't feel nearly as exhausted or as hurried. When you take action, you feel like you're making progress. Your whole mood changes. Even if you are a bit scared, wondering if you made the right decision or not, it's a great feeling of accomplishment that you are following through with a plan. And when your mood is better, you go right into reason number 2. Shaking things up and making changes, reason number 2 is it opens you up for seeing new possibilities. When your mood is better, letting go of that huge project of a bi-monthly 12-page newsletter has already opened up my time to say yes to other projects and not only help those new clients, but it also helps my bottom line for the company. That's a win-win. And shaking things up, reason number 3 that it's so helpful is it creates a new routine. I am forming a new routine and kind of expanding my bubble, so to speak. A new routine is hard at first because I'm doing new things, or things out of the order that I'm used to. I'm out of my comfort zone, growing to find a new comfort zone. Now, my team and I use Asana for our project management system, and it has been a learning process for sure. But with the recent changes that have occurred, I have been more focused than ever into the future for our clients' projects and planning better. And I'm also planning better with our company projects. Little by little, I'm seeing that my planning into the future is making the way for delegating more to my team and being able to accomplish more, much more than ever before. Remember that when a door closes, a window opens. I think it's important to realize that we should be taking control and purposefully closing some doors once in a while, allowing us to realize other windows of opportunities that lay before us. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you found today's show helpful, please subscribe on iTunes and leave a comment. You can always send questions and comments to podcast@scrivenersolutions.com. That's podcast@scrivenersolutions.com. Until next time, have a fantastic week.